everyone, I'm here with the astrology for the month of January of 2021, and we made it to 2021. Now, of course, the year rolling over does not mean that our problems and our projects all magically disappear. But I do see overall the energy for 2021 getting better, especially as we move towards the spring and summer. If you want my overall look for the year of 2021, the basic themes and things, I did post that last week, so you can check that out. But I wanted to still do a January one to talk about the themes in January, because we really do see the energy shift this month, and it'll really start to bring up some of the themes that are going to be repeating for the year of 2021. So let's get started. Also, if you want more information about one of the major themes for this month and into the year, which is about the conflict between the Taurus energy and the Aquarius energy this year, you can check out my blog. I've got a detailed explanation using tarot cards that you can check out there in the links below. But let's get started. So the first thing that happens this Wednesday. We have Mars moving into the sign of Taurus. So Mars has been in Aries for 6 months, which is very unusual. He usually spends about 2 months in a sign. But what happened was he went forward all the way to the end of Aries, stopped, went retrograde all the way back to the beginning, stopped, and then went forward again. So you could see that tripled his time in the sign of Aries. Well, he's finally going to be moving out of Aries, and he's going to be moving into the sign of Taurus. Now, normally, Mars in Taurus tends to slow the energy down of Mars. Mars is about action. Mars is about aggression and war and fire, but also sexual desire and drive and all those things. So he tends to slow down because Taurus is a slow, fixed earthly sign, and it's all about the slow burn. Like Mars in Taurus is all about slow and steady wins the race. It's the slow burn. You may not get things done as fast, but they will go longer. People with Mars and Taurus placements are the kind of people that, they're pretty calm until there's a point and then they blow up. And that's what sort of I'm expecting this month with Mars and Taurus, that there may be these points where there's these little blow ups. Because what happens is Mars is in Taurus and he meets up with Uranus. And Uranus is electricity. Uranus is sudden events. Uranus is also inspiration and insight and genius. But he's also that thing that happens like that, and he's going to spark Mars. The other thing too is that Mars and Uranus and Taurus are square, which is a stressful aspect to Aquarius, the Aquarius planets, and that is Jupiter and Saturn, which are the major theme for the year. So they're going to square planets that are in Aquarius. So this tension becomes between Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius want to move forward with things, because Aquarius is about humanitarianism. It is about the social good, the common good. It's also about technology, and it's come to mean to rule things like the internet. And that wants to make progress. So you have Jupiter wanting to expand things. You have Saturn going, oh, what rules do we want around here? And then Mars is in Taurus, and Taurus is a more conservative sign. Taurus is slow moving. It's about the environment. It's about farming. It's about food. It's about the land. And so there's this conflict between things like technology and analog. There's conflict between the old ways of doing things and the new way of doing things. There is conflict between people not wanting to change and people wanting to move forward. And you're going to start to see all of these things start to play out this month. So this Mars and Taurus is activating some of the issues that are going to come up for 2021. So if we go to, this is the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. I like to use this for keywords. I think it's very good for that. We have Mars going from Aries. Keyword is assertiveness, and I would agree, or impulsiveness, I would agree with for sure. And it goes into Taurus, which is about defense. So there's a lot of defensiveness. There's a lot of defending things. There's a lot of no, we want things to be the old way. There's a lot of that coming up, for this month. We also have Mercury and Venus changing signs this week. So on Friday, Mercury, who was in the sign of Capricorn for the past couple of weeks, Mercury and Capricorn, Mercury rules communication. Capricorn tends to be a more conservative sign. So we tend to be a little more serious in our communications. We tend to think before we speak. The key word in this deck is organization, and I would definitely agree with that. We tend to want to, talk about how we want to organize the new year. Well, now he's moving into Aquarius, and that's about originality. So it's really talking about big ideas. It's talking about how we want to see things move forward. It's also, these aha light bulb moments, inspiring moments, originality. It's really, this very forward-thinking type of communication that's going to start to happen. Now, we do have, I'm going to talk a little bit more at the end of the month as the sun moves into Aquarius, and then later in February when Venus moves into Aquarius, we're going to have a lot of Aquarius energy going on. But we're starting to get that set up in January. We also have Venus changing signs into Capricorn on Friday as well. So when she's in Sagittarius, she tends to be quite flirty and fun and not taking things too seriously. But then when she goes into Capricorn, she's more serious. She wants to settle down. She wants to be wooed with nice things. So she goes from flirtation to convention. So when it comes to romance, when it comes to beauty, when it comes to aesthetics, we tend to be a little more conservative when Venus moves into the sign of Capricorn. On Wednesday, January 13th, we have our first new moon of the year. It is in the sign of Capricorn. This is a good time to set some intentions for how you want to organize the year. On my Kevin, we're doing planner magic, so blessing your planners is a great idea. It's all about our intentions for getting organized with things. We do have Mars on that day making a square with Saturn. So on the 13th, we have this energy, this kind of rebellious energy coming up against establishment. So there's conflict between the Taurus house of your chart and the Aquarius house of their chart. So take a look at where, if you know your chart, what houses those are, because Taurus is going to be like, no, I want to do things the old way. And Aquarius is like, we need to move forward with things. And also Aquarius is kind of saying like, hey, you got to follow the rules. And Mars is like, I don't want to follow the rules. So we may see those conflicts come up in the wider world as well. Thursday, January 14th, Uranus goes direct. So Uranus spends about half the year in retrograde, so we don't tend to really notice it, but we might see things in the wider world, like we might see some scientific discoveries or developments. Usually when Uranus moves forward, we do see some technology or science related news that day, so watch for that. Also look at your Taurus house again, because there may be some inspiration that day or some ideas about, how you can potentially work with some of the changes going on to make things better. Sunday, January 17th, Jupiter squares Uranus. So Jupiter in Aquarius wants to expand things. He wants to move forward. He's got big ideas, and he's in tension with Uranus, who's like, maybe we want to do things this way. And Uranus is kind of saying, I have some insights about how we can change things, but they don't look like what you want. And so there's, again, this tension between how do we make these two different things work together. And I think that, there's conflict on the 13th when Mars comes up against Saturn, but there may be some expansive ideas or some potential solutions that come up on Sunday, January 17th, because Jupiter and Uranus tend to work together a bit better. On Tuesday, January 19th, the sun moves into Aquarius, as it always does around this time of year. And that's really going to start to build up the Aquarius energy, because we have Mercury, we have the sun, we have Jupiter, we have Saturn in Aquarius. Venus is going to join them later, and it is going to be a lot of Aquarius energy, a lot of Aquarius themes going on. So definitely, push around things like social change, social movements, movements with like technology and the internet and all of that kind of stuff is really going to start to be talked about more, and there's just going to be so much more of that kind of energy. Now, Uranus is also a very rebellious sign too. It likes to do things its own way. It doesn't like to do what it's told, but it does well when it rebels with a cause. It does well when it has something to go for. If it's just for no reason, that's when it gets destructive. So use those impulses for good things, especially for the collective good, it's saying. Wednesday, January 20th, Mars meets up with Uranus. And this is an aspect that's often associated with things like accidents, sudden events. So I'm curious to see what happens on that day. Basically, be careful. Don't play with fire or electricity that day, I would say. Don't play with them. But lie low and just kind of see what happens. Saturday, January 23rd, Mars makes a square with Jupiter. And again, this is one where it tends to amplify any conflicts because Jupiter expands and amplifies things. So again, don't get into fights around that time between the 20th and the 23rd, I would say, because people are like blowing things out of proportion. And I think that's probably going to be one of the more stressful times this month and potentially even during this year. So the good news is, things tend to get better as we move forward this year. The bad news is we got to get through January. Thursday, January 20th, we have a really lovely full moon in Leo. There's the sun meets up with Jupiter that day. It just has a lovely, lucky energy to it. Great day to put some extra energy towards some positive intentions that you have. A really good day to just have some fun and let go. That is a really positive day on the 28th. And then we end the month Saturday, January 30th with a Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde starts on the 30th and goes to February 20th. All of the Mercury retrogrades this year are in air signs. So look at where the air signs are in your chart. Air signs tend to have more disruptions when Mercury's in retrograde with things like miscommunications, things like computers going down, stuff like that. So watch for miscommunication. Back up any files you have. Make sure your security's up to date on your internet. All of those kind of things, because Aquarius rules things like technology and the internet. And with retrogrades there, I can see, like some things going down or possible hacking or things like that. I'm talking international kind of scale. So watch for those things, but also just make sure you have things backed up. Make sure that you double check that you are understood, that you're, speaking clearly, ask for clarification, all of that kind of stuff. So it's going to be an interesting month. And I think it's a month where we're really going to start to see some of the themes that are going to be played out this year coming up. So I hope you have a wonderful and safe January. Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want more astrology, like I said, I've got my blog post down below. I also want to this year do newsletters with full and new moon horoscopes. So you can check that out on my website. You can sign up for my newsletters that comes out twice a month. I also do little tweets. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I do little astrology tweets every day if you want to go over there. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me and hanging out with me and making my quarantine, whatever you want to call it. What do they call it? Some people call it quarantine. Some people call it, it's not self-isolation. It's like, anyway, me hunkered down at home, whatever you want to call it. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your company. As always, peace and love and love.